What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So Akshan, this is a new League of Legends champion I'm going to be covering today. So there's three things I'm going to cover on this champion. The first one is the champion trailer. Then I'm going to go through the champion insights, which is on the League of Legends website. Then I'm going to finish off with the champion bio. So yeah, I'll tab up the whole thing as I always do. First things first, let's start off with the champion trailer. Let's go.
I hope I haven't kept you waiting, my friend.
Yes, I know. I said I wouldn't use your absolver. But look at it. It's magnificent! Here we go. Get in, avenge fallen ally, get out. Ooh. I don't know how you live with yourself, but you won't have to for long. Wow. Fixing the world, one scoundrel at a time. Stealth time! I mean, stealth time.
Wow. Oh, yummy.
Now for my grand escape, grappling hook. The bad part about having friends, always having to avenge them. There you are. We live to fight another day. But not you. Not yet. I know you had other plans for me, Shadia. But I choose vengeance. Sorry!
Okay. Nice. Nice. Is that the end of that? Yeah, it's okay. Interesting. Good to see his abilities, crazy abilities. Putting talent to shame there. And he's got some kind of stealth ability as well. I don't know if that was tied to the water or if he can stealth anywhere. Interesting. And he mentioned, clearly this guy is from Shurima. Clearly he's from Shurima. And I'm getting kind of a theme now with the Sentinels of Light. There's one Sentinel of Light for every single area, I think. Olaf, we have Irelia, we have the one from Demacia, which is Vayne. I think so. I think we've got one from each area. I need to look into it a little bit more, but I think so. And he's clearly the one from Shurima. He mentioned there, hold on, what did he say here?
Not yet. I know you had other plans for me, Shadia.
Shadia. So this is maybe someone that's connected to him from Shurima as well. No doubt this will reveal itself in the lore as well. And then again, it might reveal itself in the bio. But no, that was good. That was a good champion trailer for Akshan. I mentioned in yesterday's video as well, he basically reminds me of if Aladdin was brought into the 21st century, basically. If he was dropped into 2021's League of Legends, that is how Aladdin would look, in my opinion, anyway. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to his champion insights, and then I'm going to move on to his champion bio. Let's go. Okay, so this is the champion insights for Akshan. No hero among scoundrels. So hopefully this might give me some indication of them abilities we just saw as well. Akshan's got a lot going on. He's a Sentinel of Light who swings into battle wielding an ancient weapon of tremendous power, i.e. a grappling hook. He's a man who believes in doing the right thing no matter the cost, and he's got a nice smile to boot. Or did we mention he's a middle lane marksman? I'm zooming a little bit there. With a grappling gun, stealth, and a revive. Oh, and a revive. So I saw the stealth, I saw the cool grappling gun, and obviously his movement that's based on that, but I didn't see his revive. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Okay, we'll get to that later. A new kind of assassin. This look here, this reminds me a little bit of Assassin's Creed, but his hood or his cloak is very similar to Senna's. Senna's got a very similar one. Before we get lost in his dreamy eyes, let's start with his origins. Okay. Akshan's gameplay development goal was to create a roguish assassin, someone who fits the let me let's make this looks playing fool's life miserable playstyle. Someone sneaky. Okay, one of the things that makes assassins effective is their ability to attack you before you can strike back. In League, that looks like untargetability in the form of Akali's Shroud, crowd control like Pike's Stun, and invisibility like Talon's ult. Okay, he's definitely got aspects of Talon in his kit as well, or in his abilities. They're all slippery and they all promote guerrilla-style tactics, or guerrilla-style attacks, where you burst down an enemy before disappearing into nothingness. Since the team was making a roguish assassin kit, stealth seemed like the obvious choice, but stealth isn't exactly a new concept for League and League Assassin. So our next question was, how do we make him feel different? The answer came not from thinking about game design, but from watching players' data define the meta. We've been watching marksmen go mid in pro and regular play for a while, but none of them feel like they belong there, recalls game designer lead Javan Jang Sidhu. They don't provide the things that champs designed for mid should, like crowd control or target access. So we wanted to craft an experience that would feel like a distinct assassin style, but also clearly like a marksman, and put those two together in mid lane. So he's a mid laner. Positioning is an incredibly important part of playing both assassin and marksman. Something that I'm learning. Positioning as something I'm learning the hard way when I play bot as well. I've been playing Varus quite regularly in bot, and position is so important. I think to be fair, for all champions, maybe apart from if you're like a support or a tank, position seems to be so important. You get that wrong, you did. As an assassin, you want to flank and annihilate squishy carries, not awkward poke beefcake frontliners with an infallible dagger. And as a marksman, you are the squishy carry, yep, with a big target on your back. So one wrong misstep, there we go, can mean insta death. Akshan is both of these things, so the team wanted to give him more control over his position in fights. That line of thinking led the team to some high-flying, super cool, savvy gameplay. Right, here's the gameplay here. Wow. What is that? I wanted to represent some part of South Asian culture in Akshan, which you can kind of tell from this, as that's something I grew up with. My mum would watch a ton of Bollywood movies where we were young, and one signature element of Bollywood movies is that they are dramatic, with over-the-top action. Yeah, I've seen a few Bollywood movies, and damn right they are, in a good way though. Style that's all about spectacle and fun, Jang says. League's signature movement spells are often the coolest part of the game, and I have a light design goal to try and make a unique movement style for each champion I work on. Akshan's original narrative with David Interlucian Sagal, and I thought about ropes as a power source for a long time at the start of the process. We talked about things like tripwires, and traps, kind of like Caitlyn and Jin. Those didn't work, but grappling hooks sure did. So yeah, he's got an aspect of Camille. With the grappling hooks, I'd say Camille. He's also got some aspects of Talon with his movability, but also he's got stealth as well. So I don't know if that's kind of like Pike, maybe. But yeah, this here is mad. So let me get this straight. He can hook onto the tower. Wow. Poor Seraphine and Varus both did. And while all this was happening, the team also needed to think about the man behind the moves. What kind of person is Akshan? Why would he use stealth and a grappling hook to fight enemies head on? And how did he get this way? Right, interesting. Okay, rules are meant to be broken. When you think about assassins, the champs who come to mind are a lot of whoever that is. Shadow Slayer, two-edgy me assassins, a very friendly succumbus, a demonic clown, and a stupid fish thing, but none of them felt right for Akshan. He swings into combat on a grappling hook for Pete's sake. Certainly he should be more cool. As we started to really flesh out Akshan's gameplay, it became clear that he was very much a charming rogue, says game designer Glenn Wright Twin S.O. Anderson. Okay, I love how they've all got these little nicknames in between the names as well. And what do charming rogues do? They break through a glass window on a grappling hook, do a parkour move, and then shoot the bad guy in the face. That personality just fits his gameplay so well. But he's not cocky like Ezreal. He won't boast about all his good deeds for attention. He'll quietly do them and maybe just throw a wink at you. Beyond being the kind of guy who'd make you weak in the knees, Akshan doesn't play by the rules. He's firmly whatever that is, the established kind of guy. Even if the establishment is the revered ancient order, the Sentinels of Light. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, this cloak is so much like Senna's as well. We'd always intended for Akshan to become a member of the Sentinels. Shares senior concept artist Justin Albers, but it was important that we capture his rule-breaking personality even if it came to the Sentinels. He has his own style of clothing. He's not defined by anything other than who he is. Even his weapon, which is an ancient and extremely powerful Sentinel weapon, is something he has modified to fit the combat style he wants. I think we saw his weapon in the Before Dawn cinematic as well. It doesn't matter that he's revered and feared by other Sentinels. Akshan has MacGyvered it by slapping a grappling hook on it. Okay. Illustration of him there. Yeah, it basically looks like Aladdin, doesn't it? This guy looks like Aladdin. But no one's as simple as that. And there's plain pain behind that smolder. Right, hopefully we get a bit of this in his bio. A lifetime of hardship, a loss so great it broke the man he'd worked so hard to become. Akshan grew up on the street urchin in Shurima village, but at the young age he struggled to turn a blind eye to the injustices around him, and he would stand up even to the most frightening warlord if viewed their actions as wrong, which we saw that in the music video, I think, as well. Until one day he pissed off the wrong man. Ooh. He was beaten and left to die in the street and even succumbed to death's sweet embrace, but was saved by a kind woman. Okay. This is the woman he mentioned in his champion trailer. Shadia, I think it is, who used the weapon both terrifying and powerful to resurrect the boy. She eventually became his mentor, training him to join the Sentinels and to put his convictions to good use. Together the two travelled across Shurima to stockpile ancient Sentinel weapons, to help against Viego's eventual return. But how did they know though? How did they know he was going to return? And the final battle between good and evil, light and dark. The usual stuff, and then everything came to a crashing halt when Shadia was murdered. Right. Akshan took the weapon that once saved him and forgot all of Shadia's talk of stopping the oncoming Rune Nation. He wanted one thing and one thing only, vengeance. We had a hard time finding the right balance between revenge and hero, which is good though. I always think the anti-heroes are the more interesting ones. The ones that have got a darker past are interesting in terms, for me personally, in terms of character development. Someone like Garen is a little bit too good. He's a little bit boring, if you know what I mean. I prefer someone like Silas. Says principal narrative writer John O'Brien. There were points during development where we made a Sentinel slight adjustment to who he was, and he swayed too far into evil and lost the good part about him. There was a span of time where he wasn't the type of man you'd want to root for. I think he landed in a place where that's morally grey. He had strong morals and a good motivation, and that's what keeps him from being the type of man who he hunts. Finding a balance between spite and justice was key to finding Akshan's personality, which is important, especially important when you consider who he could have easily become. Interesting. Two men, not a shirt between them. Akshan and Viego are two sides of the same coin. Interesting. They're two men who'd lost people they loved, two men who are driven by the need to get them back. The thing that separates them is the choices they made through their lives. Right, Viego was a spoiled prince who viewed a woman as his. Akshan was a street kid beaten to death literally for standing up for what was right. Viego murdered thousands when he refused to put his grief and selfishness aside. Akshan trained as a Sentinel of Light to defend those who can't defend themselves. Viego wants to destroy the world and Akshan must save it. This is all well and good, but League's a MOBA, not a visual novel, so no matter, is it? So no matter how much goes into the differences and similarities between these two men, none of this matters unless it's captured in-game. When thinking about Akshan as a middle marksman, I couldn't help but think about how much I hate playing with them, admits Jag. Top lane too. Either they kill their opponent at level 2, snowball, and just carry the game and get all the credit, or they fall behind and are totally non-functional. They don't provide the CC a mage can, and they take longer to scale. Basically, solo lane marksman can be terrible game experiences for teammates. I didn't want this to be the case with Akshan. I love creating champions that reminds players that working together is fun and has rewards, and it makes sense for who Akshan is as a person. Akshan has unparalleled target access and then became an answer to the question that the team hadn't yet asked. Who does he target? The answer seems easy. Akshan goes after bad guys, killers, scoundrels, but there has to be a reward for hunting down individual people, a reward that expresses his care about his allies, What if he brought them back to life? Now, this is interesting. He's got a revive as well. And this is kind of full circle because his mentor was the one that revived him. So I like how they brought this into game as well. Okay. A lot of Akshan's power comes from his weapon and the modifications he has made to it, explains Riot's Yap. I kept his grappling hook and boomerang as part of his gun to simplify his reads and prevent him from coming across as Gadget Guy, but it also serves to show the importance of his weapon. Resurrection is a pretty difficult mechanic to get right in League, especially when considering a champion needs to forfeit powers elsewhere in their kit to have such a game-changing mechanic. So true. When a champion has crowd control, mobility, or some other tool, they need to relinquish power in other ways. So the trade-off for Akshan's ability to revive his fallen teammates was to give up some of his actual combat power, which is kind of interesting because you're saying he's an assassin, which needs that burst. But then he's losing some of his combat power. So maybe he doesn't have, well, like a lot of assassins, they don't have a lot of sustain. So maybe that's what it means. It's just there. What this means in game is that Akshan's power is truly limited to burst. If I read the next paragraph, it would kind of explain it. Not the sustained front to back team fighting style of a traditional marksman. And unlike many assassins, he has no forms of slow or crowd control. But what he brings to a teamfight is equally powerful, and besides, who doesn't love getting bailed out of a bad situation by a charming lad with a nice smile? So maybe this is kind of it here. It is here. Okay, cool. So, Akshan's at his strongest when his allies are dying around him to an incredibly dominating opponent, like an enemy Muego who's just gotten a quadra. It's in those moments that the rest fades away and Akshan gets to be who he was destined to become, a hero. Akshan's resurrection mechanic doesn't just speak to who he is, but his personal growth as well, says John O'Dine. He took his weapon, the thing he uses to revive his teammates against Shadia's wishes, right? Because he mentions something. She obviously has got a different vision for what she wants him to become versus what he ultimately wants to become, which is good. That's kind of like mentor and apprentice, and they take their own path. Because he didn't care about Sentinel's rules, so maybe you're not allowed to do it if you're Sentinel, but when he's confronted with the reality of his decisions, he realises that he should be honouring her life instead of avenging her death. He knows he has to move on from his vengeance. Interesting. So this is good to see a little bit of his abilities, kind of the justification and the logic behind his design and his backstory from the creators as well. And kind of a little bit of his bio as well. So I'm sure some of his bio is going to tie in with this. But no, this is good. This is really good. The insights into Akshan. Interesting. And that's mad. Let me just see that one more time. That is crazy ability. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off with the bio. Let's go. So this is the bio for Akshan. It's called the Rogue Sentinel. Dashing through, let's zoom in on this. Dashing through the shadows of Eastern Shurima, which obviously is where he's from, a righteous avenger stalks those who have harmed others. His punishment is swift, certain, and extracted by a curious weapon that rights the wrongs of his foes. Raised on the streets of the city of Maui, Akshan was introduced to injustice at birth, which we talked about in the insights. In a place where local warlords took what they wanted, most people survived by keeping their heads down and minding their own affairs. Try as he might, young Akshan could never manage to let bad deeds go unnoticed and was often quick to intervene when he saw someone being mistreated. This approach made the boy many powerful enemies and on one fateful occasion left him beaten within an inch of his life. But luck was on his side. An old woman named Shadia... Is it Shadia or Shadia? Found the boy unconscious in the street outside her dwelling. Through Mauian custom, she could not get involved. Though Mauian custom said she could not get involved, she took young Akshan inside, and against all odds, he pulled through. As Akshan regained his faculties, he realised his saviour was no ordinary woman. Shadia was a member of the Sentinels of Light, so what, they're not allowed to help people? An ancient order committed to fighting harrowings and eradicating ancients of the Black Mist. She saw Akshan as a troubled youth, stubborn and defiant, but vulnerable. It's kind of similar to Senna in a way. After butting heads with the boy over the numerous Sentinel house rules, Shadia quickly discovered there was much to like about him. He had guts and a conscience, a combination seldom found in Maui. Seeing the immense potential of the young man, Shadia made a deal with him. She would allow him to stay free from the grasp of his countless enemies, and in return he would dedicate himself to the Sentinel Order. Shadia and Akshan formed a fast bond, and she taught him everything she knew about surviving as a solo Sentinel. Akshan, the scrappy street urchin, grew into Akshan, the fully grown bane of scoundrels, but even as Akshan's skills grew by the day, he could see his mentor growing more distant and more troubled. At last, Shadia told his pupil the reason for her concerns. A harrowing was coming, bigger than any the world had ever seen, bearing an army of wraiths and ghouls from the Shadow Isles. Their only hope of stopping the cataclysm rested with the ancient sentinel weapon that lay buried within Shurima's crypts and tombs. Right, so if the world was to be saved from ruination, they need to collect these weapons, and quickly. Right, so maybe these weapons are collected, and that's how they made their way in before dawn to Demacia. I think it was Demacia. To Shadia's dismay, she found that the ancient weapons had already been plundered by local warlords. She pleaded with them to relinquish the artifacts for the fight against the inevitable harrowing, but the warlords refused, determined to unlock the weapons' mysterious powers for themselves. Typical. With time running out, Akshan and Shadia were forced to make do with what they had, and they took stock of their arsenal. Akshan discovered a particularly striking gun hidden away in the base vault. Alarmed, his mentor snatched it away and forbade Akshan from ever using it. Why? The weapon known as the Absolver was imbued with an ancient enhancement that granted a strange, unspeakable power. It could take the life of a killer and by doing so restore their most recent victims to life. I think I should let Callista know about that one. It must not be wielded by anyone, said Shadia. Such matters of life and death are best left in the hands of fate. But Akshan still bristled at Sentinel's rules, and he had even stronger opinions on fate. He spent his whole life seeing good people horribly mistreated, while bad people did as they pleased without consequence. If fate was real, it definitely needed help that the Absolver could provide. And his interest in the weapon deepened. Akshan continued to pry its history from Shadia and came to a shocking discovery. She had used the gun to save Akshan when she found him unconscious in the street all those years ago. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. With it, she'd slain the criminal who had nearly killed him, and in doing so, restored young Akshan to life. He wondered, why did he alone deserve to be revived by the gun? Surely there were others who were more worthy. While Akshan questioned the antiquated rules of his order, his mentor continued to press the warlords to turn over their stolen weapons. Tensions between the two parties built until one tragic day Akshan returned home to find Shadia murdered in the street, almost exactly where he had fallen all those years ago. It'd be interesting if he uses the Absolver on her. Akshan knew what he had to do. He made some key alterations to the Absolver and set out into the scorching desert with the forbidden weapon, hungry for vengeance. Though he could not determine which of the warlords had killed his mentor. He knew one way to be certain. He would pick them off one by one until Shadia was returned to Rune Terror. Right, and that's interesting. That's really good. Okay, so this nicely builds upon his character as well. She saved him. She knows she shouldn't have done it. She broke the rules. He finds out of that event. Kind of then roles reverse. She dies. And if you put yourself in his position, you can imagine the guilt he must feel and the duty to bring her back to life because she brought him back to life. But then we get a little bit of the insights that he focuses on respecting and celebrating her as opposed to vengeance. She wouldn't want him to follow this path of vengeance, but a path of justice. So I wonder if he's going to give up on this mission of trying to bring her back to life. That's good. That's interesting. So I think I'll leave it here today, guys, on this one. I'm looking forward to, obviously, this character be built out in terms of his story, his skins, and all the rest of the lore that comes along with it as well. Once some things do come out, I will definitely be doing a part 2 on Akshan. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here today, guys, on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the 3 parts I did on this champion. Looking forward to see him in game as well. That's going to be interesting as well. And also how he's going to be introduced to the Ruination in terms of the cinematics as well. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.